Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. This is our second webinar. We're trying it in a slightly different format this time, in that we were hoping to do a little bit more of an informal discussion between some of the OCWI team members and give you more of a chance to actually write in with your questions and make it, as much as we can, a casual back and forth with the community. So we have a few housekeeping things for those of you online. If you can just make sure that, one, your speakers are on and you can hear us. If not, please write in on the tech support side and make sure that you let us know so we can address it. And two, if you don't mind muting your microphones so that we don't get the feedback or static that often comes from these multi-channel conference calls. So I think that's it for the housekeeping. If you do have any issues along the way, you lose the video or having problems logging in, please reach out to the email that was in the original invitation, and we'll try and get it resolved as quick as we can. For those of you who may not know me, I'm Trina Foster. I'm the Executive Director of the Ontario Centre for Workforce Innovation. And I have two of my colleagues that I'm really excited to join us. They are relatively new to our team. They're two research associates. We have Michelle Coyne on my right, your left, and Julia Gingrich on my left, on your right. So thank you for joining. For those of you who, I'm assuming you all know why you're here at this point, but the webinar will focus primarily on the two research opportunities that are open in our exploration lines right now. So those are the career pathways model and the contextualized essential skills models. One thing I've been asked to remind people, because it apparently is not updated on our website as of yet, is that the deadline for those has actually been extended. So the submissions of ideas is actually due on September 22nd, not September 8th, as we had originally planned, recognizing that the community is busy this time of year, coming back off summer holidays. We wanted to make sure we gave you all enough chance to really engage with and get good ideas in there. And then the other piece that people had suggested might be helpful is just explaining a little bit on what career pathways and what contextualized essential skills actually is as we're thinking of it. So in both of these cases, we have two opportunities around them. One is a demonstration project, and the other are exploration projects. The demonstration projects are not open yet. They will be shortly. So the exploration ones are the ones we're looking at. But the demos, when they come live, will be very structured models that we're looking for service providers to partner with us on to test out very specific components and do it in a pretty rigid and evaluative structure. So it's much more prescribed in terms of what we're going to be doing. There's some co-design component in terms of making sure that it works, but it is a specific model we want to test. Explorations is the complementary side to that. Explorations is the opportunity to look at completely new possibilities that we are not currently delivering, we haven't tried before, we otherwise would have no opportunity to play with or to do or explore, but we want to see if they work. There doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of evidence behind them. It really is a chance to put an idea forward and then structure some research around it to see whether or not it's worth pursuing. So to that end, on the career pathways side, we're looking at innovative approaches through which we can go from basic skills training through to post-secondary vocationally driven training that are specifically tailored to individuals with on and off routes to try and better take somebody through their training into employment opportunities. So it might be school to work, it might be older workers, it might be somebody who's mid-career, reskilling, upskilling, the whole spectrum is there. On contextualized essential skills, what we're looking for are, again, those sandbox ideas to try out stuff we haven't done before. And it's specifically in the demand side perspective in terms of how do we get individuals that get basic skills and vocationally driven or technically driven skills into a training opportunity that is specifically in the environment in which that employment opportunity is going to occur. So if you want to get somebody specifically into manufacturing or specifically into another sector, how do we develop really innovative, and it could be short-term, it could be longer-term opportunities for them to go from basic skills and technical skills training into employment opportunities. So those are the two that we're focusing on. We're focusing on the exploration side of things. We will likely do a webinar for the demos once they come online. But today we're focusing on the first two, and I am going to toss it out to you guys because as new members, I would love to hear your thoughts on why has this been exciting?
Well, as a researcher, this is a fantastic opportunity because we're trying a really new way to do community research. So it's not only about you coming to us with a proposal, but for all of us to work together to build really innovative, strong research projects.
Yeah, and drawing on that, it's also an opportunity for us to bring more people to the table, that we're encouraging people to not only rely on their own team to come up with the solution that fixes these problems that we can see, that we're wanting to collaborate with people, make sure that we're thinking outside of those silos and working together to find innovative and workable solutions for the problems that people are identifying.
So what's innovative?
So I think for me, innovative is looking at a problem and finding a new solution for it, a different way of solving something that maybe the community is familiar with. Maybe they've tried solving a few different ways, and also if they've been working within certain confines. Innovative is thinking outside of those confines, thinking about new ways of addressing those issues and pairing with new people, trying to build different collaborations. You can't really innovate when you're only within one space. You've really got to reach out and build that network. And so for me, a big part of innovation is collaboration.
I think one of the things that people have been asking when I've been out and chatting with them, I get a lot, is the what's innovative, what's new, what are you looking for? And I find that oftentimes they revert back to, what would I do if I had more money? Mm-hmm. And I've actually started saying, it's not what would you do if you had more money, it's what would you do if you had no rules? If you could take everything off the table and think, what do my job seekers and learners need? And how do we design that? So that, for me, that's been one of the pieces. You mentioned we're not asking for proposals. What are we asking for?
Well, at this point, we're asking for ideas. So we want you to come to us and tell us about a really great idea you've been working on, you've been thinking about, that will make a real difference in your community. So addressing a gap that you've discovered, or something that really needs to be dealt with. Come to us with an idea, and then we'll bring it to workshop and be able to build it into a research project.
What does that look like? Because you've been involved in actually designing the forms, putting up the process and whatnot. So for those who may not have had a chance to look at it yet, when they go onto the website and they're going to put that idea in, what are we asking them for? What's it going to look like for them?
Well, a lot of the things that we're asking for in the form are just a way for the proponents to identify a current issue, a gap in knowledge and practice, a challenge that they want to find a solution for, and then presenting that idea out and mapping out who they think they could work with and what they really want to do going forward. And from that, we look to see which ideas have the strongest potential to be a really great project, and we bring them to workshop. We bring in key stakeholders, experts in the field, researchers and evaluators, and really come together to workshop the idea, strengthen it, develop it, get it really focused so that it's benefiting as many people as possible, and building out that strong research frame around it. So a lot of it is trying to bring those ideas and make them even better together.
I just realized there was a housekeeping thing that I forgot to mention, which is you guys, as questions are coming up, please feel to be writing them in. We have our back-end support who's actually kind of going through and prioritizing. We will get to as many as we can. We will get to all of them in one format or another. So either an individual follow-up if it's a specific type of question that was to an organization, or we'll add it to our FAQs. So we will get through everything, either here or offline. And definitely follow along on the website for those types of pieces. But if you could be sending the questions in as they come, then our support team will be able to be getting those ready and lined up for us as we're going through. So one thing I think would be helpful, both of you have had the chance, you mentioned workshops, which is stage 2 of the process. Both of you have had a chance to do those. Can you each pick one that you've had and talk a little bit about that project, why we went with it, how the workshops have gone, what can they expect?
Of course. Well, it was such an exciting opportunity, and we had such fun doing them. So one of the ones that I was a part of was a project called Top 60 over 60. And they had identified that older workers were putting limitations on themselves in considering going into entrepreneurial directions. So they wanted to come together and think about how can we help older workers combat ageism. So we sat down and with them and with other stakeholders in the room, we're able to develop a really solid plan for how we can see if intervening with a workshop will help older workers move into entrepreneurial projects.
I thought that one was really interesting because when Helen first kind of came forward, she really had just a kernel. There's no organization, there's no structure, there's nothing that's being done. It's just something she recognized and she's trying to figure out, and now we're helping figure out how to put a structure around it. So I thought that was a really great example. What's yours so far?
So I helped to facilitate a workshop with Victoria County Career Services, and their idea was to help train employers in prior learning assessment and recognition as a way of trying to rethink how when employers list qualifications or equivalent, a way of really defining what equivalency looks like for both the employer and for the job seeker. So that had to do with building a competency portfolio for job seekers and getting employers to start to rethink how they describe their jobs and how they look at candidates. And so part of why that was so exciting for me was that it was taking an existing problem and coming at it from a different direction. It wasn't about trying to sell employees better or sell job seekers better, but really start to rethink how we look at employees, how we look at what job descriptions look like, and starting to train employers to think about new and creative ways of approaching that challenge.
So the piece I love most about that, and I think it's relevant to career pathways and contextualized essential skills, is the demand side focus. I think and a lot of you have heard me say this, at the end of the day, there are two people who can impact an employment outcome, the person looking and the person hiring. So we are looking in our projects to figure out, we focus a lot on the supply side. We can do everything we want in the world. If we don't actually produce somebody that the employers are looking for, then it's just not going to help. So finding ways in these projects to bring employers to the table in a meaningful way, even if it's just getting their opinions on what they need and helping them understand what they need, I think is huge. And in career pathways, contextualized essential skills, we definitely want to do that. So Wendy Vike, our associate director, is now writing on the whiteboard something that I need to clarify, which is what is demand-led. So fair enough. We had an actual full line opportunity around this, and I think the community, we didn't do a good job articulating enough to the community what it meant. What demand-led for us is literally, what is the hiring side looking for and need? So what are the employers actually saying they want? What do they actually want and need? And then better aligning everything we can do to position our job seekers and learners for success that aligns with those needs. So that's, thank you. I think did we get a 15 or a 20 minute?
That was 15.
That was a 15, okay. So I'm trying to think of the other pieces that might be most interesting. Have we had questions starting to come in?
We've had one so far.
Okay, well, you want to throw it out? Maybe we can.
Yeah, sure. So this question was from Lisa Benoit. Is there a memo of understanding with MAISD for those that deliver Employment Ontario programs? For example, the ability to use existing LBS or ES resources or clients outside of existing program guidelines.
So we've been working with MAISD on a lot of different pieces around what this means for your specific deliverables, your CAMS reporting, the various pieces. They've been working with us, and in fact, it's in legal review right now to figure out how we're going to be able to accommodate those pieces and make sure that you are freed up in order to be able to participate in these. So we will absolutely, in the preliminary design component, have had them at the table in such a way as to make sure it is not impacting or impinging on your ability to deliver or our ability to really explore and play. So it'll be there. So Wendy's writing up on the board again, who could be a proponent? That's a really good question. So it's an interesting question. So I'm going to punt it out to you guys, and then I'll put one spin on it.
Well, I do the short answer, which would be anyone. But I think that Julia will be better at sorting out the details.
Well, so in our submission form, we have a list of who you are and where you align yourself. So hopefully, when you are applying, that you're fitting into one of those. But really, we want more people to come to the table. That we don't want just researchers who have done this sort of work before. We want people who are on the front line, who have experience with this, who know what the challenges are, to be able to come forward and then to partner with other people so that we can really build out these projects. So that's where we really want everyone to come to the table. We're trying to keep it open so that we get more people involved in the conversation and in the solutions.
I think that's fair. I've actually had a few people that I've been speaking with who have said, well, how come municipal governments can apply? How come employers can apply? Why would you give to private sector? Our community already suffers from funding shortages. Why are we further dividing the pot? We deliberately left it open so that we can get the best partnerships and the best ideas. But I think one of the distinguishing factors is we're not looking for people to just augment their core funding or support another program or the usual operations. So yeah, if we had a private sector come forward that basically was just looking to increase their business capacity, that's not going to fit. It's not of interest. We also don't want one proponent from any sector coming forward who says, this is me, this is what I want to do, and this is how I'm going to do it on my own. It won't be successful. It's not what we're looking for. The collaborative and the value add component are huge. So I'm hoping that as more of these roll out, people will start to see those nuances. But in the interest of really trying to go after the best ideas and the best collaborations, and in these communities, get all of the various stakeholders together working on them, we did say that a proponent can be anyone.
We do have another question. The sandbox idea for the contextualized skills sounds interesting. Can you provide an example of what this might look like?
I've been picking on Kingston for the last little while, and it's because, so Kingston has a new baby formula plant that's going to be opening up in a couple of years, and I know the municipality is still actually working on the agreements for selling the land and getting this in place. But that's 250 jobs that span from clerical and janitorial to really sophisticated engineering requirements. Kingston has Queens, it has colleges, it has your service providers, and municipality has great innovation centers. It has a really strong capacity. And so, but those individuals, that plant is not something we've ever had. We don't have people who know how to run, operate, support, and work in that plant. So between now and those 2 years when they're coming in, how do we give them the basic essential skills to tap into the local labor force to be able to support the labor force needs of that plant when it comes in? I don't know. I don't have an answer. And maybe there are people sitting in Kingston going, will you stop talking about this? We don't have to do it. But in terms of giving an example, that's one that comes to mind. There's a new opportunity coming forward that we're trying to tackle. How do we do it? Excuse me.
Our next question, are you funding the development of an innovative concept or the implementation of that developed product?
Do you want to talk a bit maybe about the VCSS example in terms of its phases?
Great, yeah. So with each of these ideas, some people are coming to the table with a pilot project in mind that they want to really run out. Others know that there's some research that needs to be done to figure out how they would design that project. So with VCCS, with their idea for the training employers in prior learning assessment and recognition, that as we workshopped the idea and developed it, we realized that before we could start to pilot out the training of employers and see if that actually has an effect on acquisition and retention of employees, we had to figure out what employers needed, what sort of information they needed to be able to identify competencies. And so as we were designing the project, there was actually sort of a front-end research part where we had to look into, okay, what are employers looking for? What are the needs, first off? And then linking into, well, what are the needs for identifying competencies so that that information can inform the design of the training process. So the project ended up being in 2 phases. The first phase is the background research phase, and then the second phase would be the design and implementation and evaluation of that training process. So with some of the projects, if the pilot is something that can go a bit earlier, then that process gets done on the front end a bit quicker, but others, it's a research process. We want to be able to be making evidence-informed decisions right from the beginning, and so we're building that rigorous research frame, however it fits the project. So with each project, it's going to be tailor-made.
Exactly right, and we exist in the same constraints that the rest of the community does, in that our funding is modular and it's for a limited period of time. So this one has an end date for the projects of August 2018. But as we were workshopping the VCSS and looking at it, I'm fully confident that we will be here in perpetuity. I just can't commit to that on paper. So we have to put our money where our mouth is and actually make sure that we are. But I would view some of these projects as opportunities for pipeline development. So we'll do the first stages and we'll get some evidence and we'll look at what's working, what's not working. And then we can iterate, and then we can, because in an ideal world, what I would love these to be able to do is provide opportunities to put them into other regions, to look at them for other effects or other impacts beyond just the communities that they're in, so that we can start rolling out, effective practices that are evidence-informed across the province. So we want all stages, and we're committed to putting structures around them that can support all of them from development through implementation.
Our next question. Could a project from another province be considered a new pilot project in this province?
Who wants to talk about I'm cognizant that I talk a lot. I really do. I'm kind of incessant, so.
Well, from my understanding, it won't necessarily be a fit for the exploration project, but our demonstration projects coming up might be given opportunity to do that.
But I also think that with some of the projects that we've seen that people will refer to other programs that exist in other provinces and using that as either inspiration, as a way of guiding the decisions that are being made while they're designing their own pilot. So if it's taking one and implementing it in Ontario and trying to test it out, that does fit with demonstration. But there are a lot of ways that you can draw on other existing programs to help you determine what you're going to do with your own design, these exploration projects.
I think the distinguishing factor probably comes down to, is it truly an implementation of that specific model, or is it inspired by and informed by what we've learned from that model?
Yeah.
If it's the former, it's a demonstration, and you should absolutely come chat to us about what a possibility around that might be in Ontario to test it out, and if it's the latter, then explorations for sure.
Next question. With the finances in mind, I understand that it should not augment existing funding. However, is there a cap for each project, and are there funding categories, i.e. staffing, training costs for clients and employers?
So, do you want me to do the budget question?
Sure,
yeah. I'm probably the one who's willing to be the most hard-nosed on this question, but it's the one that we've been having the most questions around, because unlike every other research opportunity out there, we didn't ask you to put a budget in. We just asked for the idea, and I think a lot of people are going, but there's got to be something in there. The reasoning for it is that we want the idea to inform the project, and the budget follows. I think if you honestly ask yourself the question, have I ever submitted an idea that I knew was going to actually cost more than what that grant was allowing for, but I did it anyway, I think most people will say, yeah, I've done that. And on the flip side, where it's like, well, this is going to cost me about $25K, but I can get 40, so we'll throw a little bit of extra in there. And I get it. I've been in the same environment. I've done the same thing. But with these, what we wanted is, what do you need? What is the project? What's the idea that you want to try? And then we'll put the funding around it. Now, we can't do $2 million projects, right? So that's off the table, large scale, multi. But if you think about it, the preliminary scope of these projects is August 31st. That in itself is going to limit, you're not going to get $1 million out the door by August 31st on these projects. So take the idea, we'll help develop it, and we will put the support around making it happen. And that we haven't put a cap on that. We've said that what it costs is what it costs. If it's a great idea, it should be explored.
It's another funding question, sort of. What if an organization is already working with an established demand-led career pathways model? In this case, it's 80% employment outcome at exit for new and incumbent, as well as a very strong contextualized essential skills model and assessment package. Would the funding support established programming through scaling and expansion?
So that's a conversation I'd love to follow up on, because we have opportunities for doing case studies, and the idea around case studies is it would give us the line of evidence required to then look at what does this mean for scale-up transferability and larger rollout. So there's a preliminary step. Explorations is not the right fit for it, but an avenue for whether or not it could be or should be is the case study as the preliminary step.
Another question here. Could you add a bit of detail around what happens during the workshop and the idea process? What is the process?
All right, well, I'll take that one.
I can stop talking.
So actually, it's a multi-stage process. So once the ideas get selected to move forward to workshop, we have our regional coordinators reach out to the proponents and have a preliminary interview where they can go over the idea, some of the research needs, and they also try to think of different stakeholders or potential partners, or even just contributors that can come to the table to help to workshop the idea and develop it further. So that's the first stage. The next stage is then to take it to a first day of the workshop where the idea gets developed, where we workshop it, and we really sort of expand on trying to get the sort of kernel of the idea into a strong research question. So we bring as many people to the table as we can. We bring researchers and evaluators so that we can start to really direct those ideas so that we know how to frame that research around it. And then the next step would be going to a day 2 process where we then bring back some of the people. with the researcher and evaluator to then to start to design the research project. So once we know what the question is, once we know how to really focus that, the idea that was submitted, we then build the research frame around it for the second day. So there's multi-stages. There's also a lot of consultation in between. We're really here to support the idea that we once they're selected to move forward, we really want to get these to be the strongest projects they can be. So every stage of the process is helping to bring in all the partners that are needed, to get the right resources at the table, to make sure that the proponents are moving forward and able to pull together a strong proposal, and then carry out a strong project as well. Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you. What needs to be done by August 31st in the preliminary phase?
That's going to be project specific.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys have both had experience with.
Yeah, so to go back to the VCCS example, that was one where, you know, the whole project, we could see it taking 2 to 3 years, especially because one of the questions had to do with whether or not the prior learning assessment and recognition training would affect employee retention. That's a question that we can't answer in 6 months. So the way that we designed the whole project, as I said before, was to be in phases so that we could have deliverables by the August 31st deadline. And then from there, we could map out what the rest of the project could look like going forward from there. So it's really going to be specific to each project. And that's what part of the workshop is about, is to design what's going to fit, manage the scope, make sure that everything that's being put out there is actually feasible in the time frame.
Also, I'll jump in on one because I've heard this in my conversations too, and I'm going to pick on Lisa now, but there's a very large portion of the community who've done research, know research, very comfortable with research, and anytime we talk about the workshopping, they're like, really? You're going to tell me about research? I don't need to do this. Just let me develop, give you an idea of project and let's just move forward. So we had a workshop last week actually with Lisa Taylor, the Challenge Factory, extremely strong researcher, extremely strong research team, and there was a little bit of that in the first conversation. She was like, come on, you're not really going to make me do this. But it was a great workshop. She really enjoyed it. It was a really good opportunity to brainstorm, expand the scope. So I think even those of you who are used to research, the idea is there will be value add in this for you. And the other part, I think that we hear a lot are people who, I've got the project, I just want to roll it out. And that plays in a little bit to Wendy's most recent question on the whiteboard, which is, that's an on-the-spot question. So Wendy's question is, what won't work or get supported? So in fairness, when I get asked this in conversations, I often put out some common things. If you're putting together a project idea and one of the goals is to be able to retain existing talent or capacity in your organization, probably not going to fit. If it's an idea that has been submitted elsewhere and did not get supported or funded, probably not going to fit. Not because we don't have the same selection criteria or that we're using the same selection criteria, but more because if there are other channels or avenues out there that would be interested in this, we shouldn't be doing it. It's not a unique value add for us to be looking at those types of pieces. So I know that money is tight in this sector, in the community, and I know we're looking for every opportunity we can to best serve the needs of the job seekers and learners we're working with. What we're trying to find is OCWI's unique value add to the community in putting forward opportunities that you couldn't otherwise do. So those, the one that's been sitting on your shelf for 2 or 3 years, maybe might fit. Ones I've heard so far, probably not. So those are the 3 that I often kind of come back with. I'm guessing those are the 3 you were trying to get me to say. Wendy's nodding her head offside there. But yeah, that's so there's a value add in the workshops. It's not just a hoop. It's not just us kind of saying we want you to do this. There really has been. So for those who really felt that they had their project lined up, those who really had no idea, those who are strong in research, everyone so far has come out of these workshops, which is what I've loved, saying, that was good. Okay, we get this. We're excited.
Another question here. What is the status on the Youth Transitional Jobs demonstration projects?
That is one of the ones. So Youth Transitional Jobs is the most challenging with regards to the earlier question of the Memorandum of Understanding with the province, because they need to actually figure out what it means for those who have YJC funding who want to participate in our demonstration project. We need to figure out the legalities of how we work that with your existing contracts and still allow you to participate in the project pilot. So the date on that right now for the ministry coming back and saying, okay, we've got this figured out, is actually October 2nd. So that's what we're working towards for the Youth Transitional Jobs demo.
Another question? If I have an idea, but no employer partner yet, is it still worth proposing, especially with the August 2018 deadline?
Absolutely. So one of the great parts of the workshop and the way we're building these projects is even if you don't have a partnership lined up, but you have an idea of organizations you'd like to work with, or even an idea of what those organizations would be like, we can help facilitate bringing them to the table. So the workshops, we want as many stakeholders as possible to be there so we can build really strong projects. So definitely don't think that shouldn't hold you back. We are going to work to build the strongest projects possible.
Mm-hmm. And in the submission form as well, we have a part where we ask for the partners to be set out, but also we have a question where we ask, what additional partners, stakeholders, contributors, who else would you want to work with on this? And a lot of proponents have set out that, they've had preliminary meetings with people, that potentially if the project goes forward, they can meet with these people. Others have just said, I really want a big employer on board, or I want to work with a planning board. I want to partner with them, but I haven't had a chance to ask. Setting out all those points to let us know that you're open to collaboration and that you're thinking in those terms, thinking about who the network might be, that lets us know that you've got a plan in mind that then we can help to facilitate that networking as well. We can bring more people to the table. So you don't have to have everyone signed up from the start, but it is great that we've designed the forum so that you have a space where you can show us what your vision would be for who those partners could be.
The wish list.
Yes, yeah.
I think the other piece would be, feel free to reach out. Your regional coordinators, if you don't know who they are, go to the Our Team page on our website. They are, not that they know all the employers in your regions, although Wendy might in hers, but they know who to connect you with. And so they'll be an invaluable resource for just bouncing ideas off of, for exploring possibilities, for looking at partnerships, for even just calming nerves or answering questions we don't get to today. So by all means, if you don't know your coordinator, meet them, send them an invite. They will come to your door. They're more than happy to reach out, and they're a fantastic resource to you. All right. So I think there's nothing else on the Wendy board. I think we've covered off the ones that have come in.
Questions in, yeah.
And I think we've highlighted the pieces. So I would encourage people to go to the website. I know it's not as up to date as we would like it to be. We're working on it. But one of the things we are committed to is transparency around these processes. So right now, for example, if you go to explorations, ideas in development, and older workers, the 5 ideas that have moved forward to workshop phase, they are all up there. The project descriptions are up there. What stage they're at is up there. Information on how to prepare for a workshop, what the summary comments from the peer review panel, all of that is going to be up there. So the idea is that, yeah, it's a transparency exercise, but it could be a learning opportunity for those following along as well, to get a sense for what does this process actually look like, feel like, and also to look at the 5 great projects that we're moving forward. So thank you for joining. I have my comms person sitting right in front of me who's going to slap me if I don't remind people to sign up for the newsletter, to follow us on social media. We're on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. And by all means, reach out to any or all of us at any point in time, because we're more than happy to connect and answer questions.